isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about having the courage to go first. In today's episode, I'm sharing how my own approach to leadership has evolved, shaped by my own experiences, Brene Brown's work, the lessons that I've learned inside Disneyland, and my most recent experience in the past week in the USA, and what truly works for middle managers in our registered clubs. If you've ever wondered how to lead differently, especially in high pressure, high expectation environments, this episode is for you. Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Michelle Pascoe, your host. And here we are going to be exploring what it means to be a hospitality leader in 2025. We were taught leadership was about being the expert, the strong one in the room, someone who knew the numbers, hit their KPIs, and didn't show cracks under pressure. Now, don't get me wrong, those skills certainly still matter, especially in hospitality where operational precision is non-negotiable. But over time, over these past 3 decades, I've realized something wasn't clicking. I was training managers in frameworks and strategies, but we weren't shifting results where it counted, in how teams felt, how they showed up, and how they stayed. What I saw was a gap, a missing link between performance and people. So here's the first shift I made. Leadership isn't just strategy, it's connection, it's clarity, it's compassion. Now, when we look at Disneyland, and I recently was there just only a few days ago, I saw this idea in action. Now, I've been there multiple times, over 14 times, and I noticed it in every time I visit. Even under pressure, managing queues, cranky toddlers, broken rides, the cast members lead with presence, with joy, with warmth. No barked orders, no panic, just consistent, calm leadership on the floor. And it made me think, if they can lead that way in a theme park filled with thousands of overstimulated people, surely we can do the same with our teams in our registered clubs the same way. Over the years, I've been able to do 2 courses at Disney, both in Orlando and Anaheim, on leadership, on customer service, and on team engagement. And as I said, I've been to Disney over 14 times. So I just want to talk about the leadership the Disney way, because what struck me most was how seamlessly they combine both operational excellence with emotional intelligence. Every experience was clearly scripted, but still felt deeply human, deeply rooted to the 4 core values of Roy and Walt Disney: innovation, quality, storytelling, and community. Each cast member, that's their employees, owns their space, whether they be serving in one of the many retail stores, assisting guests on the rides, or maintaining the park to its high level of cleanliness. They are empowered to make decisions, to make it a magical experience. I saw them handling guests who weren't happy, whether it was waiting in the long queues, even with a fast pass, or dealing with questions, focusing on the positive, creating fun moments. Even the security team who checked our bags coming into the park used a little bit of humour. When it came to a toddler who was behind us, who was clutching very tightly to their bag, the security guard wanted to see what was inside it. So instead of saying, let me see inside the bag, he said, oh, I need to check that to make sure there aren't any cheeky mouses in there wanting to come in and join Minnie and Mickey. So with a giggle and a little bit of glee, she passed the bag over. Security is a duty that has to be performed to make sure everybody is safe. But doing that in that fun way created an experience, not only for that little girl, but certainly for her parents and all the others. For me, the magical experience was when I reached the counter with an armload of goodies in one of the retail stores. The cast member serving me noticed that I had 2 Mickey ears, one for the bride-to-be and one for the groom. He asked when the wedding was, and at the end of the transaction, he went to a drawer and handed me 2 happily ever after badges, especially for the newlyweds. He really made this a really special magical moment, and my daughter, who loves Disney just like me, who couldn't attend this time, really thought it was such a real special treat that he'd gone to the trouble and had given through me these badges for her and her husband to be. Now, that's not an accident. That's training. That's culture. That's leadership by design, by trusting your team and empowering them. It's through intentional leadership. No need to check with the supervisor. They are the leader of their area on duty. That's how customer experience shifts not from a poster, but from personal leadership. The magic isn't just the fireworks or the songs that get stuck in your head like it's a small, small world. It's how they make you feel while you're waiting in line. Hospitality should be the same. Brene Brown's work, for instance, is something that I truly resonate with and have read all her books and passed them out through my middle management movement program. What she shares in her books and her own style of management has had a profound impact on modern leadership, creating a language for leadership that actually fits the reality of our workplaces. We've long separated hard skills from soft skills, but in hospitality, the soft stuff is often the hardest to do well. There are three key ideas in Brene's work that I've always come back to. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the path to connection, and it truly is, from the leader to their teams to their members and guests. Boundaries are kind, and clarity is kindness. These are practical truths, especially for middle managers. Now, my own personal experiences that I've taken away from the US in the last 10 days was the Cheesecake Factory and Moxie in Scottsdale, Arizona, two fun-filled restaurants. So when spending this time there, I stayed at the Curland Western Resort. Now, this isn't just a resort, it's a hotel over a 735-acre space that has been transformed into a welcome village of homes and commercial buildings and this fantastic place called Curland Commons, which is right opposite the resort. Now, it has a beautiful mixture of dining experiences and retail therapy. This is a really well planned out space that, as I said, is a mixture of residential, commercial premises. And actually, just as a side note, because my husband's a town planner, it was really interesting to see there was no glaring logos. It didn't matter what color your logo was or the size, they all looked the same. So it was using very soft black and white, grey on the sandstone, textured buildings, all those colors. Even if, you had a rainbow or a gold or a bright purple with pink stripes logo, it made no difference. You could use the same wording, but it had to be the same colors. So everything just blended in so well together. Now, at Curland Commons, apart from the shopping, there was lots of dining choices. We were spoilt for choice. But two memorable experiences were the Cheesecake Factory and Moxie when it came to service and leadership. Now, Moxie is a restaurant at Scottsdale Fashion Square, which is a multi-story fashion and a whole lot of other shops. But there was this high quality of restaurants, and like many hospitality venues globally, they're experiencing high cost of products, attracting and maintaining quality staff, and balancing their outgoings and sales, which is no easy task, as we know, for the hospitality industry. But our server, like all the dining experiences, introduced themselves, but then added her personal touch as she asked where we were from. And of course, when we shared we were from Australia, she said, "Oh, I love your accent." And if you're a traveler, you know that a lot of people love our Aussie accents. But she made a deeper connection because her husband was from England. So she just added that tiny little bit of a personal touch, which moved it from just being a, "Oh, well, I'll say I like your accent," to something that little bit more meaningful. While we enjoyed our meals, and my goodness, they were amazing. One of the other team members, but he was dressed in a suit and introduced himself as the manager, came over for a short little fun conversation, not only about our meals, but what we were doing in Scottsdale, how we were enjoying the really hot weather. But then he went on to talk not just about himself as being a manager, but his team and what it meant to him and to his co-manager on the same evening of bringing the team and showing them that they were part of the team as well, not just pushing from the back, but being supportive of them. And this is what I saw time and time again. As I said, I've been to the America many, many times. I was trying to count up more than 20 states that I have visited. And service has always been something I've focused on. But this time I felt the quality and standard of service had risen quite noticeably, even since my recent trip, which was, back in late 2023. I had noticed that there was this more focus on actually connecting with the diner or the guest in the hospitality industry, and even in any industries, but particularly in hospitality. It was also the quality of the service. Things have changed there a lot with the wages have gone up. In some restaurants, there's no tipping, so the cost of food's gone up, so that's increased the wages. And there's there's for and against comments on that, from USA citizens themselves. But to me, it really was that change. When I first went there in 1979, it was all about the have a nice day. Here's your water, here's your salad, and here's the menu. But it was, even though it was polite and friendly, it was very robotic. And then over the years, I found sometimes it was literally being served to staying, even in the little coffee shop. And then, as I said, 2023, I really started noticing a difference. But this time, it really caught my eye and attention. It wasn't just the high end or the middle end range of restaurants, but it was the Starbucks, the local cafes, the cafes that were connected to hotels, or just, random ones that I found out on the street that were really making the difference with their quality experience. And I feel that came down to how the leaders led. They were different to the past. How that made the frontline teams feel, that really showed in the experience that not only I felt, but that I observed with everybody else. So what this chap did as being the manager, he talked about, him, not just himself, but his team. And then, as I shared briefly in last week's episode, I went to the Cheesecake Factory. The first night I went alone, and I had an amazing server. And at the end, I asked her, why does she work here? Why does she choose to work here? And what keeps her at the Cheesecake Factory? And it all came down to this beautiful story that she shared with me, how each week a nun comes in, and it's only her one outing per week. And this beautiful server, she'd been divorced for 5 years. She knew she had to get a job, so she chose the Cheesecake Factory above all other hospitality spaces. And just this one insight, when she shared me this story about the nun, she said, I just want to make a difference to her and really make an impact on the meal that she's eating. Not just her, but for every person she served. But I thought, wow, this isn't just a job in hospitality. This is her, and for many that I chatted with, made a difference in how they felt, how they connected with people. And to me, that's what it's all about. Hospitality is about being hospitable, connecting with people. Now, she chatted to me about her manager, who I had observed that same first evening, just being beside the register with the girl who was, assigning seats, because the Cheesecake Factory, if you haven't been there, you can make bookings, but it's mostly walk-ins. So it's managing a massive floor. And the server that I had, she had a number of tables, and she was watching them so beautifully, making sure everything was falling into place, that nobody was waiting, nobody had to call her over. She was there. Now, I came back the next night with my husband. Now, I didn't have the same server. The server on the second night was good, not as good, but honestly, it would have been really hard to beat the girl from the first night, because she was amazing. But what I did have the opportunity to do was have a chat to Greg, who was the manager. And I commented on how his team had mentioned to me what a wonderful manager he was and how supportive. And I said, how do you find being a leader today in hospitality? And he said, you know what? we've all been in those roles in hospitality where, and in leadership in particularly, where we micromanaged our frontline team members, or we were always pointing out the negatives, or really pushing them to do things, not being there as support. And he goes, you know what? That doesn't work. He said, what works is what we're delivering now. And that is to make that connection, letting the team know that we are here for them, being supportive, not micromanaging, being seen on the floor. And that to me was a big thing. I know leaders have got a lot of things to do, middle managers, they're running around. But being seen on the floor, I not only feel that it was good for customers to see, the diners, but it was really good for the frontline team to see. Now, they weren't doing their jobs. And this is the biggest thing I find when I'm training middle managers in my middle management movement program is that they still tend to do the jobs because, oh, it'll be quicker, it'll be easy, it'll be done the way I want. Now, when we delegate tasks, that's not abdicating our responsibility. Delegating is trusting somebody. And this is what I saw in Greg and many other leaders, but particularly Greg, was that he had delegated the responsibility of each person's role and then let them do it. He never went in and bustled over and thought, oh, I think they could go to this table, or they're taking too long, I'll go and do this. Certainly he checked in on the staff. He'd walk past a few tables and smile and have a quick little chat, but he wasn't taking over their roles unless they needed help. And I felt that style of leadership and what he was saying he's found has worked really well. It's creating a culture of working together, being supportive of each other, not just telling them what they have to do. And that to me is what really cemented my thoughts about the hospitality sector this time in the USA, which had been different to all my most recent, when I say most recent, really over the last 10 to 15 trips, over the last 10 to 15 plus years, of how different it is now and how it's making the customers feel, because the cost of going out is expensive. And so people are really concerned about, well, what are they spending their money on? Is it going to be not only value for my money, but am I going to be walking away thinking this is what I need? We know that middle managers are the heartbeat of all business, but they certainly are in the registered club industry. They're the ones that are handling guest complaints or questions, calming the staff tension when there's a little bit of, I don't want to work with them, reworking the roster after that last minute, sick call comes in, and trying to stay afloat under pressure from senior management and other team members. And yet they often get the least support. I always call them the club sandwich. That's why in my program, Middle Management Movement, we don't just train the people to manage, we support them to lead with clarity, consistency, and compassion. So here's an action tip. In your next check-in with your middle managers, don't just ask about their tasks, ask what feels heavy. How are they feeling? Ask what they're stuck on. Hold space. Actually listen, not just standards. So let's bring it all home with 3 simple shifts that you can make this week. 1, swap scripts for presence. Instead of rigid responses, give your team permission to feel and pause and respond with empathy. 2, hold space. Not just people accountable. Accountability works best when people feel psychologically safe. Without safety, they'll hide or deflect. And 3, normalize check-ins, not just checklists. Replace one performance check-in with a real conversation. It'll pay dividends, trust me, and it will pay dividends in both trust and retention of team members. Ask me the wording that makes the difference to the question next time you reach out to me. Leadership isn't about leading perfectly. It's about leading bravely. It's how we show up day in and day out. If you want to build a team that's not just productive, but proud, then it's time to evolve how we lead. Whether you take a leaf from Brene Brown's playbook or the magic of Disneyland, remember, clarity, compassion, and courage will take you further than control ever could. If this episode gave you something to think about, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an insight and share it with others. I would just love that. And if you're ready to take your leadership to the next level, especially in the hospitality space, head over to michellepascoe.com for customer service workshops and leadership programs, including middle management movement, designed specifically for you. Each program is bespoke for my clients. So thanks for tuning in and keep leading with courage, clarity, and compassion.